The Fourth Estate's failure. Why did Trinidad's major newspapers fail the nation by remaining silent on Rowley's Jamette attack? An editorial by Professor Wall Street. Editorial silence on misogynistic language raises questions about media independence. The role of the Fourth Estate extends beyond reporting events. It includes setting standards for public discourse and defending democratic values. When former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley publicly called current Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar Jamette a deeply misogynistic and sexually degrading term, the Trinidad Guardian and Trinidad Express had a choice: uphold journalistic standards or remain silent. They chose silence. This was an abdication of responsibility that raises serious questions about the independence and integrity of Trinidad and Tobago's major newspapers. When leading media institutions refuse to editorially condemn a former head of government using sexually degrading language against the current head of government, a woman, they fail every citizen who depends on a free press to defend democratic norms. The question must be asked: are the Trinidad Guardian and Trinidad Express independent journalistic institutions, or are they effectively supporters of the People's National Movement, unwilling to editorially condemn even egregious conduct by P&M figures? Here are 10 reasons why both newspapers failed Trinidad and Tobago. 1. The line was crossed. This was not normal political rhetoric. Rowley's repeated use of Jamette, a term understood to mean a sexually promiscuous woman, crossed a fundamental line. This was not robust political debate. It was degrading personal attack designed to destroy a woman's character through sexual degradation. When a former prime minister uses such language on national television, it is not just another political story. It is a fundamental assault on the dignity of public office and on every woman in Trinidad and Tobago. The Guardian and Express had a duty to state editorially that this conduct is unacceptable. They remained silent, treating it as just another political controversy. 2. Rowley's pattern of misogyny demanded editorial response. This was not Rowley's first offense, but the latest in a documented pattern. She-cat, geometry. A golf course is like a woman. You have to groom her every day. Imps, pimps, and chimps. When someone demonstrates a pattern, isolated incidents become evidence of character. The Guardian and Express had evidence to editorially declare that Rowley's pattern of misogyny threatens women's dignity in public life. They chose not to, effectively normalizing misogyny by treating each incident in isolation. 3. Editorial silence enables future attacks on women. When newspapers refuse to editorially condemn misogynistic attacks, they send a message. Attacking women through sexual degradation carries no institutional consequences. Political opponents will condemn you, but the institutions that shape public discourse will remain silent. The Guardian and Express had the power to make clear that while they report all sides, they will not remain institutionally neutral when fundamental standards are violated. Their silence was not neutrality, it was permission for future attacks. 4. They set standards when it serves them, but not here. Newspapers take editorial positions constantly, endorsing candidates, condemning policies, demanding accountability. Editorial silence is a choice, not a necessity. The Guardian and Express routinely use editorial platforms to set standards and condemn corruption, demand transparency, call for reforms. But when a former prime minister uses sexually degrading language against the current prime minister, suddenly editorial positions are unavailable. This selective engagement reveals their silence was a deliberate decision. 5. Double standard. They've condemned lesser offenses. Both newspapers have surely condemned corruption, inefficiency, and policy failures editorially. Have they encountered conduct more deserving of condemnation than a former prime minister calling the sitting prime minister a sexually degrading term on national television? The double standard is clear. Governance failures receive editorial comment, but fundamental assaults on human dignity and democratic norms receive silence. This reveals disturbing priorities. Policy failures are more worthy of condemnation than misogynistic attacks on women. 6. They had cover. Everyone else condemned it. Government ministers condemned it. Network issued strong statements. Civil society expressed outrage. Public reaction was clear. An editorial condemning Rowley's language would have been aligned with broad societal consensus, not partisan bias. Even with this cover, they remained silent, suggesting silence was not about avoiding partisanship, but about something else entirely. 7. The timing matters. This happened during a critical period. Rowley's attack came during intense national debate about governance, security, and CARICOM relations. When political tensions are high, independent media must most clearly draw lines to prevent competition from degrading into personal destruction. The Guardian and Express had opportunity to reinforce that certain lines cannot be crossed. They failed, allowing one of Trinidad's most important political debates to be contaminated by unchallenged misogyny. 8. They failed women everywhere, not just the Prime Minister. This is about every woman in Trinidad and Tobago who watched a former Prime Minister call the current Prime Minister a sexually degrading term, and watched major newspapers say nothing editorially. It tells women that even as the most powerful person in the country, men can attack you through sexual degradation, and institutions defending democratic norms will remain silent. It tells girls that misogyny is the price of public life. It tells men that sexually degrading women in power carries no institutional consequences. 9. Questions about P&M. Allegiance become unavoidable. When newspapers consistently report P&M attacks, but never editorially condemn even egregious conduct by P&M figures, people draw conclusions. Their silence on Rowley's Jamette attack, combined with silence on She-Cat, Golf Course Woman, and other statements, creates a pattern that looks like protection. Are the Guardian and Express effectively P&M supporters unwilling to editorially challenge the party, even when its leaders engage in conduct that would be condemned from any other public figure? Their silence makes this question unavoidable. 10. They broke the social contract between press and public. Society grants media extraordinary protections because they serve essential democratic functions, holding power accountable, defending values, setting standards. When newspapers abdicate these responsibilities, they break the social contract justifying their privileged position. The Guardian and Express receive constitutional protections and shape public discourse. These privileges come with responsibilities. One responsibility is speaking institutionally when fundamental standards are violated. Their silence broke faith with the public that depends on them to defend democratic norms. What they should have done.
The editorials needed were not complex. State that sexually degrading language against women in public life is unacceptable regardless of political affiliation. Note Rowley's pattern of such language. Call for retraction and apology. Affirm that democratic competition doesn't justify sexual degradation. And declare that women's dignity, including prime ministers, is a line that must not be crossed.
Such statements would have defended democratic norms without partisan bias, set institutional standards, and provided moral leadership. The Guardian and Express chose silence instead. In conclusion, a failure that diminishes democracy. The Trinidad Guardian and Trinidad Express failed Trinidad and Tobago by remaining institutionally silent on one of the most egregious examples of political misogyny in recent history, treating it as just another political story while never adding editorial voice to say this is unacceptable.
That silence failed the nation in 10 ways: failing to recognize crossed lines, ignoring Rowley's pattern, enabling future attacks, selectively withholding standards, applying double standards, refusing to take a stand with widespread cover, failing during a critical moment, abandoning women throughout society, raising unavoidable questions about PNM allegiance, and breaking the social contract justifying press freedom.
The question, are the Guardian and Express PNM supporters, becomes unavoidable, not because they report PNM perspectives, but because they consistently refuse to editorially condemn even the most egregious conduct by PNM figures, while taking editorial positions on countless other issues.
Trinidad and Tobago deserves media institutions that speak truth to power regardless of which party holds it, that defend democratic norms even when uncomfortable, and that recognize some conduct is so beyond bounds that institutional silence is complicity. The Guardian and Express failed these tests. Their silence will be remembered not as professional neutrality, but as moral failure. A moment when the Fourth Estate had opportunity to defend essential standards and chose not to. Until they recognize and fulfill this responsibility, questions about their independence and commitment to democratic values over partisan protection will persist, and they will be entirely deserved.